There is a gate. It is a fine gate, heavy timber iron hinges set into a wall that surrounds one of the largest houses on the street. Behind the wall, a courtyard, a garden, servants moving between rooms. The smell of roasted meat drifts out every evening, music, sometimes, laughter. And in front of the gate, on the ground, in the dirt, there is a man. His name is Lazarus. He has been here so long that the dogs know him. They come at dusk and lick the open sores on his legs, and he does not have the strength to push them away. He is hungry in the way that goes past hunger, the kind where your body has started to forget what food feels like. He watches the gate. Sometimes it opens. Sometimes scraps fall from the table inside and make it past the threshold. Most days, nothing comes. The man inside the house walks past this gate every morning. He wears purple, the kind of purple that costs more than most families earn in a year. Tyrian purple, crushed from sea snails off the coast of Phoenicia. His undergarments are Egyptian linen, the finest cloth in the ancient world. He does not think about the man at his gate. He has a full day ahead. This goes on for years. Then both men die. And Jesus, standing in front of a crowd of Pharisees who are very comfortable, very wealthy, and very certain they understand how the afterlife works, begins to describe what happens next. What he describes will not let you go. Here is what you need to notice before we go any further. Jesus told dozens of parables: the prodigal son, the lost sheep, the sower, the 10 virgins. Not one of those characters has a name. They are a father, a woman, a farmer, nameless, universal. That is how parables work. But this man at the gate, this broken, sore-covered, starving man that nobody in Jerusalem would have looked at twice, Jesus gives him a name: Lazarus. That detail is not an accident. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why it matters, and why it might be the most quietly devastating thing in the entire story. Jesus buried something else in this parable. One detail. Most people read past it in 3 seconds. It is the most unsettling thing he ever said about what waits for us on the other side of death. We will get there, but not yet. Because first, you need to understand what Lazarus saw when he opened his eyes. When Lazarus opened his eyes, he was not alone. The text says angels, plural, carried him. Not one angel dispatched as an afterthought, a company of them. And they brought him somewhere the Greek calls the kolpos of Abraham. Kolpos, it means chest, lap, the inner fold of a robe where you hold someone you love. The same word the Apostle John uses in his Gospel to describe where Jesus rests, in the kolpos, the bosom of the Father, the eternal closeness between the Son and God. That is where Lazarus went. The man who spent his whole life on the outside of a gate, carried by angels into the closest possible place. The rich man, he opened his eyes too. The Greek word Jesus uses is Hades, not Gehenna, the lake of fire, the final judgment, the place of permanent destruction. Hades, the intermediate state, the holding place between death and the last day. The rich man is not yet in his final destination. Neither is Lazarus. This is, and the word is exact, the waiting room. But it is already agony. This is not a story about what happens at the end of time. This is not a story about the lake of fire. This is not even a story about the final verdict God will render over all of history. This is a story about what is happening right now, today, on the other side of the thin curtain we call death. And what Jesus describes should make you sit very still. The rich man is thirsty. He is in fire. He is conscious, fully, horribly, completely conscious. And he looks up, and he sees Lazarus. He sees the man from his gate, the man he walked past every morning in his purple robe. He sees him resting against Abraham's chest, at peace, held. And the rich man calls out. And here is the first detail Jesus buries in this story that most teachers walk right past. He uses Lazarus's name. Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus. He knew his name. He always knew his name. He walked past him every morning for years, and he knew exactly who that man was, and he did nothing. Memory does not die when the body does. In Hades, the rich man remembers everything: his house, his gate, his robe, his table. He remembers the face of the man he ignored. He remembers what he chose every single morning when he pulled that iron gate shut behind him. This is detail number 1. Conscious memory survives death. You will not drift into blankness. You will not forget. Whatever you have done, whatever you have left undone, you will carry it with you into whatever comes next, with a clarity that makes this life feel like a dream by comparison. The rich man is not confused about where he is or how he got there. He understands perfectly, and that understanding is part of the torment. Stay with me, because the second detail is the one that stops most people cold. Abraham answers the rich man, and his answer is kind. That is the word. His tone in the Greek is not cruel, not triumphant, not cold. He calls him child, teknon, my child. He acknowledges the reversal. Lazarus suffered, you were comfortable, now it is flipped. And then he says this: between us and you, a great chasm has been fixed. Fixed. The Greek is esteriktai. It means firmly established, set in place, immovable. It is the same root word Luke uses earlier in his Gospel, in chapter 9, verse 51, when Jesus set his face toward Jerusalem. That same resolute, immovable, deliberate intention. The chasm between the two sides of Hades was not an accident of geography. It was placed there, on purpose, by design, and no one crosses it. Not from the side of rest to the side of torment, not from the side of torment to the side of rest. The direction does not matter. The chasm holds both ways. There is no second chance on the other side of death. The Jewish historian Josephus, writing just decades after Jesus told this parable, described Hades in almost identical terms: two regions separated by an uncrossable boundary, one of rest and one of suffering. This was not a foreign concept Jesus invented. It was the geography his audience already understood. He was not introducing a new map. He was confirming the one they already feared was real. This is detail number 2. The boundary is fixed. Whatever you carry into death, you carry permanently. The chasm is not a door, it is a wall, and it was built before you arrived. Now pay attention to this, because this is the detail nobody talks about. After Abraham tells the rich man the chasm cannot be crossed, the rich man does not argue. He does not rage. He does not curse God or Abraham or Lazarus. He makes one more request, and the request is not for himself. Then I beg you, Father, send Lazarus to my family. I have 5 brothers. Let him warn them so that they will not also come to this place of torment. He remembers them, each of them, their faces, their names, the way they lived. He knows they are still alive. He knows they are making the same choices he made. And the only thing he wants, the only request that comes out of a man in the middle of agony, is for someone to warn the people he loves. This is detail number 3. Hell does not kill love. That is the thing no one tells you. The rich man in Hades still loves his brothers with the full weight of everything he is. His love did not burn away. It survived death completely intact. It just became completely powerless. And that, if you will let it land, is the most devastating thing Jesus says in this entire parable. 3 details: conscious memory, a fixed chasm, and love that survives death but cannot save. We are halfway through this story, and we have not yet gotten to the part that should stop you cold. Because there is one more thing Jesus buries in this parable. 1 sentence, 11 words. And when you hear them, really hear them, you will understand that this story is not just about a rich man and a beggar. It is about you and everyone you love, and a warning that has already been sent. If this kind of teaching is what you come here for, the kind that goes past the surface and into the bone, then make sure you are subscribed. There is more coming. And you do not want to miss what is in the second half of this video, because Abraham is about to say something that changes everything. Before we go any further, you need to know who Jesus was talking to. The Pharisees were standing right there. Luke tells you this, chapter 16, verse 14. They were listening to every word. And Luke adds one more detail about them that most readers skip. They loved money. The Greek is philargyros, lovers of silver. These were men who had built an entire theological system that equated wealth with divine favor. If you were rich, God was pleased with you. If you were poor, well, you were probably being punished for something. And standing just behind the Pharisees, almost certainly in the same crowd, were Sadducees. Here is what you need to understand about the Sadducees. They were the wealthiest, most powerful religious faction in first-century Jerusalem. They controlled the temple. They controlled the high priesthood. They controlled the economy of sacrifice, and they believed, officially, as a matter of theological doctrine, that there was no afterlife, no resurrection, no Hades, no Abraham's bosom. Death was the end. Full stop. Jesus is telling this parable to men who have built their entire lives on the assumption that what you accumulate here is all there is. And he puts them, not by name but unmistakably, on the wrong side of the chasm. The rich man in purple is not a random character. He is a portrait. And the men listening to Jesus that afternoon would have recognized the brushstrokes. Now watch what happens next, because the story Jesus is telling goes much deeper than a warning about wealth. Why does Lazarus have a name? In every other parable Jesus tells, the characters are anonymous. A prodigal son, a forgiving father, a good Samaritan. No names. That is the convention. Names make characters specific. They anchor a universal story to a particular person and lose the wider application. So why break the rule here? The name Lazarus comes from the Hebrew El-Azar. It means God has helped. That is the entire name. That is the complete biography. God has helped. This man, whose body was covered in ulcers, whose only companions were street dogs, whose whole life was one long experience of being unseen, carried his answer inside his name the whole time. He did not know it. The people at the gate did not know it. The rich man walking past him every morning certainly did not know it. But God knew it. And the moment Lazarus died, the name became true in a way no one could have predicted. God helped. Not by healing him on earth, not by opening the rich man's gate, not by sending food or medicine or a single human being who cared. God helped by sending angels, plural, a company of them, to carry him to the one place in all of creation where he would never be unseen again. Here is what most people miss about this moment. Luke was a physician. He is the only gospel writer who gives you the clinical Greek word for Lazarus's condition, healkomenos. Ulcerated the open sores of a man whose body is failing from the outside in. Luke notices the medical detail because Luke notices suffering. And then Luke records that the same broken body that could not move from a gate was carried by angels. The contrast is not accidental. It is the whole point. Now, the chasm. Augustine of Hippo, writing in the 5th century in his landmark work on the City of God, used this parable as his primary text against a doctrine that was gaining ground in his generation. The idea that the soul sleeps after death. Unconscious, unaware, simply waiting in darkness until the resurrection. Augustine would not have it. He pointed to this text and said, "Look at the rich man. He sees, he speaks, he remembers. He feels thirst and heat and longing. He recognizes Lazarus. He knows his brothers are alive. There is nothing unconscious about any of this. The soul after death is not less aware than it was in life." Augustine argued it may be more aware. Stripped of the distractions of a body, the soul perceives with terrible clarity. You will not sleep through what comes after death. You will be awake for it. And this is where the chasm becomes more than geography. The Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, one of the most celebrated Jewish teachers of the 1st century, a contemporary of the Apostle Paul, wept on his deathbed. His students gathered around him and asked why he was crying. He said, "There are 2 paths before me. One leads to paradise, one leads to Gehinnom, and I do not know which one they are taking me down." The greatest rabbi of his generation, a man who had given his entire life to the study of Torah, weeping because the chasm is real, and crossing to the wrong side of it is permanent. And no amount of religious achievement guarantees which side you land on. The rich man was religious too. He calls Abraham father. Abraham calls him child. He is not an outsider to. He is not a pagan. He is a Jewish man who knew the scriptures, attended the feasts, probably gave offerings at the temple, and none of it moved him 1 inch closer to the other side of the chasm, because he walked past Lazarus every morning, and knowing the right things, and saying the right things, and doing the right religious things, none of it closed the gap between his table and that gate. Hold that thought, because Abraham is about to say something that Jesus has been building toward since the very first sentence of this story. The rich man has one request left. He has accepted the chasm. He has accepted that he cannot cross it. He has accepted that Lazarus will not bring him water, that Abraham will not send relief, that the distance between where he is and where he wants to be is permanent and fixed and will not change. And so he asks for something else. "Then I beg you, Father, send Lazarus to my 5 brothers. Let him warn them, so that they will not also come to this place." Abraham hears him. Abraham does not dismiss him. He answers with the same word, child, teknon, the same quiet, devastating kindness. And he says, "Your brothers have Moses, they have the prophets, let them listen to those." The rich man pushes back. He is desperate now, the only desperation that has any purity left in it. The desperation of a man who wants something not for himself, but for the people he loves. He says, "No, Father Abraham. If someone goes to them from the dead, if they see a miracle, if they have proof, then they will repent." And Abraham says the last words of this parable. If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced even if someone rises from the dead. Read that sentence again. Even if someone rises from the dead. Jesus is standing in Jerusalem. He is weeks, possibly days, from his own arrest. He knows exactly what is coming. He knows he will be crucified outside the city walls. He knows that on the third day he will walk out of a sealed tomb in a resurrected body that can be touched, that can eat, that bears the wounds of the nails in his hands and feet. He knows that 500 people will see him alive after his death. He knows all of this, and he puts the answer to the rich man's request, right here, in this parable. Before it happens, the rich man wanted someone to go back from the dead and warn his brothers. Jesus did exactly that. He rose from the dead. He appeared. He was seen. He was documented by eyewitnesses whose testimony was still circulating when the people who heard this parable were still alive. And most people still did not believe. This is the detail Jesus buried in the first minute of this story, the thing he said you would need to come back to. The parable is not just a warning about wealth or neglect or the afterlife. It is a prophecy. Abraham's final words are Jesus describing his own resurrection and predicting, with heartbreaking accuracy, that it would not be enough for the people who had already decided not to listen. Here is the part that lands differently the longer you sit with it. You know someone right now who is the rich man's brother. Maybe it is your father, who grew up in church and walked away at 22 and has not been back in 30 years. Maybe it is your daughter, who asked you hard questions about faith when she was 16, and you did not have good answers, and the distance between you has been growing ever since. Maybe it is the friend who sat next to you in a pew for a decade, and then one morning simply stopped coming, and when you asked why, they said they just did not see the point anymore. The rich man in Hades would give everything, to reach them. He has the motivation, he has the love, he has the urgency that only comes from knowing exactly what is at stake. And he has no voice, no reach, no way across the chasm. You do. You are still on the side of the living. The warning has already been sent. The tomb is already empty. The testimony is already written. Moses and the prophets are already in every hotel room and every phone and every library on earth. The evidence is not the problem. It never was. The rich man's brothers had everything they needed. They had the same scriptures he had. They had the same history. They had the same God. What they needed was someone who loved them enough to say something. Lazarus never speaks a single word in this entire story. Not one. He is carried, placed, seen, requested, but silent. The man the world ignored, the man whose name nobody at that gate ever thought to learn, God gave him rest, and dignity, and presence, and the kind of closeness that the Greek word kolpos describes, chest to chest, the way a father holds a child. He did not need to speak, he had already been heard. 3 details. That is what Jesus gives you in this parable. The first, conscious memory survives death. You will not forget. You will not drift. You will wake on the other side of death with everything you did and everything you left undone, completely, perfectly, permanently intact. The rich man remembered Lazarus. He remembered his brothers. He remembered every morning he pulled that gate shut. Memory is not mercy in Hades. It is the weight you carry in. The second, the chasm is fixed. There is no revision on the other side, no second attempt, no negotiation with Abraham. What you carry into death is what you carry forever. The boundary was placed there deliberately, estericti, immovable by design before you arrived. The third, and this is the one that should stay with you longest, love survives death. Even in Hades, even in torment, the rich man still loves his brothers with everything he has. And that love is completely, permanently, heartbreakingly powerless. You are not powerless. Not yet. Which of these three details landed hardest for you? The memory, the chasm, or the love that could not reach? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. Here's the last thing. Lazarus spent his whole life at a gate nobody opened for him. He had no voice, no advocate, no one who thought his name was worth learning. And when he died, angels came. Not one, angels, a company of them, carrying him to the closest, safest, most held place in all of creation. He was not forgotten. He was never forgotten. The rich man is still in Hades. His brothers are somewhere on this earth, still alive, still choosing, and so are you.